Get ready, the foot-stomping, finger-snapping musical celebrating the story of Motown rolls into this town while showcasing some local talent. Washington Full Circle starts right now. Welcome to Washington Full Circle. I'm Furman Patterson. It's the unmistakable Motown sound, the music that had the nation moving to the same beat and produced a social and cultural change. As DC celebrates the music and the legacy of the Motown Story, two cast members from the Washington area are helping light up the stage, Anissa Felix and Mark Moss. Thanks to you both for joining us in your busy schedule.
Thank you for coming.
Now, that's Motown is the play, the musical play. How hard was it to go through the casting process, Anissa?
I went through a few rounds. I was in New York and I auditioned. I went through a few rounds, and I got the call, and they said, "Come on to tour." So I came on, and I'm a swing and an understudy.
Fantastic. And Mark, for you, you're both from the DC area. Mark, you're from DC, and you're from Manassas, Virginia. Congratulations.
Thank
anyway,
you.
Tell us.
Well, when I auditioned, if I recall correctly, there were about a couple months of auditions going on, and then I happened to be in New York at the time, and there was an audition happening. I said, well, let me go in. You know, I used to complain about not being able to have time to audition because I was touring with other companies, and this was happening, and I just felt like it was meant to be. So I went in. I want to say I was hired like a month later or something. I was amazed. I couldn't believe it. But the auditions kept going on. This was around November of 2013, and then they were still going on all the way up until maybe a few weeks before we started this tour in March of 2014, March 10th.
So the tour started where? In what city?
Chicago.
Chicago.
We started in Chicago.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And I understand that in one of the productions you played Diana Ross. Is that correct?
Yes. So I understudy Diana Ross. I go on when I'm needed, and I got to do it a lot when we were in Toronto. So it was a lot of fun.
Now, is that role, I mean, everyone is so familiar with Diana Ross.
Thank you.
Was it difficult getting into that spirit?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of research involved, especially when you're playing a character or a person that's so iconic. You have to do your research. You have to understand what their mannerisms were, where they came from, why they do and say the things they do. So, but then you also have to be true to yourself as an actor too. So there's a lot of playing around with how much Diana Ross I can put in and how much of myself I can put in, and finding that nice balance.
Now there's a lot of that in this play. There's a lot of dancing, there's a lot of music. I went to opening night, here's my playbill.
Cool.
But the dance, the choreography in this production is fantastic. Was it difficult getting to learn these specific moves in the show? They're just so fantastic and so on point.
Well, the thing is that the show covers so many different eras of music, you know, and the styles change. And it's still the same Motown sound, but as you go through the years, the sound starts to change, which also dictates the type of dancing that you do. I would say the most difficult thing for me was looking at it. When you look at it on like YouTube, is oh, I can do that, and then you get in rehearsal, there are all these nuances that make it what it was and make the Temptations different from the Four Tops and from the Miracles, and you know, and having to switch it. You saw the show, so it moves really fast. So
really
having
fast.
to switch gears so fast, you know, in such a short period of time, you know, it can be a challenge. But once you get it and you knock it out, in rehearsals, and then you know, it becomes like second nature. But you've also got to check in a lot to make sure that you're still doing what's, you know, what's true to the music at the time, you know, in the choreography.
I've seen so many of the clips, the old clips from Motown of the original artists, and sort of know those songs and know those moves. But I saw in the production that, like you said, you're true to the artist, but you also bring in your own as an artist.
Yes.
Tell us about something like that you brought in your own special part too.
Well, whenever I go on for Diana Ross, I have a little trigger that I use. It's oh yeah, and you just say oh yeah, and it just gets you in the space of where her voice sits. Or since I go on, I'm a swing. I go on for every a lot of different characters. I'll do a different warm up for each track that I go on for, because each character sits in a different place in the body. But there are just certain little things that help you kind of click in to the person that you're playing that night. But yeah, it's just a lot of research. There are lots of videos online I look at, and of the Supremes and the Vandellas. There's so much information out there that we can kind of soak up.
Yeah.
Do you find either of you find yourselves singing or humming these tunes while you're at home?
Yes.
I don't actually,
Really?
unless I'm specifically, you know, deciding to do it. I mean, but you hear it everywhere, you know. And we do 8 shows a week, so I think the music is always, we're doing the music every single day except for Monday. Just because like she was saying, she does the Vandellas, and then she might have to go in for Diana Ross in the middle of the show, who knows. You know, you've got to go through a range of warm-ups to get you prepared for all the different negotiating that you have to do throughout the show. You know, so I play Eddie Kendricks and also Junior Walker, which is 2 totally different vocal types, you know.
Well, we're going to talk a lot about this. Stay by, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with 2 local cast members who are helping tell the Motown story on stage in Motown the Musical. We'll be right back. Yes, that's the sound from the hit music factory that once cranked out miracles and temptations. Welcome back to Washington Full Circle as we celebrate the Motown story. Now, as you saw from those clips, not only is the singing fantastic, but the costumes. Tell us about that. They completely, to me, capture the times, but they're beautiful. What do you think about that?
Well, E. Sosa designed our costumes, and I noticed that a lot of the more iconic costumes, like the Supremes pink dresses, the Temptations and the Miracles, they're very iconic looks that are very similar to what they actually wore, especially on the Ed Sullivan Show. And then a lot of the pieces, I can speak for the women's costumes, are actually vintage that they pulled.
Really?
Yes. So a lot of the tags you'll see are like the hand-stitched tags. One of them says "Made in West Germany." So I can tell you how old that one is. But yeah, it's very close to what people wore back in the time when the show was made.
Very close and very different from today.
Yeah.
You know, so putting it on every night is it's interesting, you know. And I remember when Isosa was initially setting the show, and we would have racks and racks and racks of clothes, just trying to specifically choose what was going to work. And it's so specific, like from one person to the next, and just a scene that might have 4 people, but you've got to capture the moment of time that it was, you know. And so they take a lot of pride in the specificity of the clothing, so that's really cool.
And then there's so many characters, so many people in that production. How many?
31, 32?
Around there.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, I think I saw online that your mom was at the opening night, and so was Barry Gordy. Was that a big pressure for anyone?
Well, you know, Barry Gordy is really, really involved in the production. He is just as vibrant as he was back then, and so it's an honor to even be in the room and next to him and get knowledge, because it's him, you know. If you want to speak to somebody that knows how it actually was, he's the guy. So I think whenever he walks in, there's a moment where you just kind of pull up just because you have to, and just because you feel like you have to. But he's really cool. He's really down to earth.
Yeah.
He is very specific about what he remembers and what he wants, and deliberate. You know, like I enjoy, and I am really, really thankful. Like, just being able to get all of that firsthand knowledge is amazing. Yep.
And what's amazing about this production is it really tells the story, not just of the music, but everything behind the music.
Yeah.
Even each one of those songs, how those songs came about. And what struck me was that I guess they voted on the Motown artists, listened to a song, and decided whether it was good enough to be
democracy.
Produced. Now, also, it pointed out the change in times in music, and you can hear that in the production from the 60s, and then when things got kind of turbulent with Marvin Gaye and some others, they wanted to do a different type of sound.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Well, the music, Barry talks about how, you know, the world was going through a lot of different things, and when they were creating the music, a lot of times they didn't really know what they were doing and how impactful it would be, you know. But then the time started happening around the 60s and around the Martin Luther King death and all of that stuff, and people were more connected to social change and making music that really reflected what was happening in the world, and how we felt and how we wanted to move forward, and not just making frivolous music. It was about making something that had a purpose, you know, and using this platform that we have now to reach people, you know, to bring people together, and also to make people aware of what was happening, and, you know, that we weren't going to stand for this, you know. So it's part of the heart of what Motown is and why it is still where it is today. And, you know, the longevity of the music, the substance, we have to do it every single night. So we're reminded of all this every day, and with everything going on in the world, it's kind of interesting and a little bit eerie sometimes, just to think about how relevant the music still is, you know?
Very relevant, very relevant. Well, there's lots more to talk about. I hope you two will stay with us for one more second. Stay with us. Washington Full Circle will be back in a moment with more on the Motown Story. Don't go away. We're celebrating the Motown Story today on Washington's Full Circle with two of the cast members from Motown the Musical. Now, about the Supremes. What I think a lot of people didn't realize is that the Supremes didn't have hits right away. That was a dry period, and then they hit with one particular song. And since you've done Diana, you're understudy for the Diana part, tell us about that song.
Well, with Stop, when they were recording the Supremes' early works, and you can actually hear the early songs that they tested with the Motown producers. They couldn't figure out the formula. They didn't know if maybe Mary was the lead singer, if Diana, or if Flo. So they were trying different things. And when they finally got to Stop, it was the big hit, or A Baby Baby, Where Did My Love Go? All these great hits. They finally figured out something that worked. And it's so exciting in the show, the way that it's staged. You get to see the little trial and error. And when they get the big hit, it's just so satisfying for the audience. Oh my gosh, they started from, this these little girl group in Detroit, and now here they are, these superstars. So
All polished.
all polished, beautiful, it's exciting.
Yeah.
It's really exciting to watch.
And a big thread throughout the program is Barry Gordy and Diana Ross, that relationship. Did either of you know about the relationship prior to doing this play?
I don't think to the extent that we know now, and I don't think anyone. I don't think anyone will ever know the full extent. But to the extent that we show it in the show, I don't think that I was aware. I mean, I was a kid, and I do recall. Stories of growing up, different things, but you just don't. It didn't really resonate back then, and or that they're still friends now, so which is really, really cool. He talks about that all the time. They're still friends.
Yeah. And then the play sort of starts with the 25th anniversary of Motown, and then it sort of goes back and recounts the whole story. But what's also interesting is the amount of artists. Some artists that I didn't even know were Motown.
Same here.
Yeah.
Same here.
It's an educational piece. Gladys Knight, Rick James, some of those people I didn't know about.
Commodores, I don't think that I knew, and even
Tina Marie. Yeah, that one was one was pretty fun.
So it's like an educational, Motown educational.
Yeah, there's a lot of information packed in there. You get so many different historical perspectives that you never really noticed before. Or when I came onto the tour, I knew the music, but I didn't know the story behind the music. And I think the story helps illuminate the different levels of the songs.
Yeah.
Does it change from production to production, city to city? Does anything change in the musical?
Well, not really. We do have to, because we're going to a different house every single city, there are adjustments that have to be made in terms of entrances and exits and stuff like that. But the show is still the same show. The content is still the same, the order. We do a lot of week gigs in the city, and we'll have one day off, travel to the next city, start Tuesday. You make adjustments on that Tuesday, just, maybe we can't do this because maybe it's not as deep, the stage, or something like that. But it's still the same show.
What struck me was there's a lot going on in this production because we fly through a number of years.
Yes.
People are coming in and out.
Coming and going.
Was it difficult to do this type of play where so much is going on, so many people are moving through this set?
Well, I think what's interesting is that there's actually maybe 3 shows going on. The show that you see, the backstage traffic that you don't see, and the costume and changes. So it feels like there are many shows going on. So that's, I think, learning the show. You have to learn what you do on stage, and the second you walk off stage, you have something else to think about.
Right.
Your costume, you have to switch a different character, a different role. So that's difficult.
Well, we do a whole lot of, each individual person does a lot in the show. And at times, I often forget what's happening because when I'm off stage, I'm not usually sitting. I'm getting ready for my next entrance. So something's going on, and your cue line to get back there. And then I think I might have seen the show, sat out the show, and watched the show just to get a different perspective. And you see the show often. But I looked and saw, I said, that's happening? I didn't even know this was going on in the show because you're so involved in your work during the show that you don't get a chance to kind of check in into what's going on. And so we get, every now and then we get swung out to watch a show so you can be reminded of the story. And, you can always get back to the story and making sure that you're not disconnected from the through lines and all of that stuff. So,
What people will find out too from the Motown story is the struggles later on in keeping the artists from leaving, from being bought up by other other production houses, particularly with Diana Ross too. Yeah. Tell us, for those who haven't seen it yet, who should come to see it.
Yes, come on out.
What was that supposedly like for Berry Gordy, having this happen?
Well, I was told that Diana and Barry used to joke all the time. Oh, this company offered me this contract, but I said no. This company offered me another contract that was even bigger, and I said no. And finally, in the end, as we all know, Diana does leave Motown, and because of the relationship we were talking about earlier, it was a blow. It was a real blow. Mm-hmm. And you know, he created these superstars, you know, from the ground up. And at the end of the day, they were an incredibly successful label, but they were independent. Right. And they were in what we would say an indie label. Right. And so, you know, it's very hard. It's like a lot of these stars I'm sure felt a way about leaving their home, you know, and their home was Motown. Right. So that we do talk about that in the show. Mm-hmm. But yeah.
Now, there's also a cast album from one of the productions. Tell me, I never know how that happens. Is they do, because sometimes they do multiple albums, cast albums. Mm-hmm. Is there one for this traveling show just yet?
No. Yeah. That was the flagship show, which is Broadway. Mm-hmm. Same creatives, same producers, same story. And then that recently closed in January mm-hmm. of this year? This past year. Mm-hmm. And while the tour was out. So there's a whole plan, like we're going back to Broadway very soon, which was just recently announced. But it's the same thing, and it's an ever-changing beast. You know, just putting a show on a different set of people, it takes on a whole new life of its own. But it's still the same thing, and it's fresh. You know, this show, they've had chances to look at what they would like to change, maybe make some adjustments, do things like that. You know. It's a really cool show. I saw the show on Broadway too.
Mm-hmm.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you both for joining us. A fantastic show. I enjoyed it so much.
Thank you.
And I hope it stays around for a while.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's it for Washington Full Circle. Thanks for our guests for joining us, and thanks to you at home for watching. We'll see you again next time.